Healing Wisdom is made possible by members like you and sustaining members like Michael Brabowski. You can become a sustaining member of WOMR for as little as $15 a month. For more information, call 508-487-2619 or visit our website at WOMR.org, where you can learn more about legacy gifts and planned giving. You're tuned in to 92.1 WOMR FM Provincetown and 91.3 WFMR FM Orleans, the voice and spirit of Cape Cod. I bid you welcome to another episode of Healing Wisdom. I'm your host, Pandora Peoples, chartered herbalist and psychic medium. Healing Wisdom explores mind, body, soul connections as we discuss the healing effects of the arts, metaphysical concepts, intuition, and the spiritual aspects of everyday living. Healing Wisdom begins in the heart. Our theme music is provided by Mystic Pete. Hello out there. Today, I welcome Kalidasi, international dance mentor and soloist performer from Boston, Massachusetts. She's developed a dance philosophy and movement style called modern temple dance. Her dance is informed by 15 years of study in fusion belly dance and the classical Indian dances Odissi, Bharatanatyam, and Kathak. She continues to conduct workshops and perform internationally and is passionate about teaching the transformative powers of dance. Welcome, Kalidasi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Pandora, for having me on.
I would love for you to talk about what sacred dance is and why it is important historically.
Right. So it's important, right, that we define what we mean by sacred dance, because that can be as different a definition as there are people. So yes, I would love to explain what I see as sacred dance and then move into why I feel it's important. First of all, what is sacred, right? And to me, it's an acknowledgement, a recognition, a connection, and a utilization of powers both within us and outside of us that is bigger than our individual and immediate identity. And when we acknowledge, we recognize and connect and use those powers through the medium dance, that's when it becomes sacred dance. So that is using our physical bodies in a rhythmic way with the conscious intent of connecting to those energies. So that is sacred dance for me. And then important, historically speaking, it's sacred dance has been a practice through that definition. It's through that broad definition. It's been a practice that we've seen all over the world throughout history, through many different cultures that have no connection to each other. And the dancers were seen, with our limited vocabulary, we can call them priests and priestesses. They were used within their own community. They were seen as conduits to this universal energy. They represented their gods. They were even seen as their servants to the gods or even wives of these deities. And they were intermediaries, and they maintained this connection between the human world and the world of the gods. And through that connection, as it was maintained and honored and nourished, the village and the community were seen as prospering as a result of those energies that were coming from the heavens through the physical bodies of the dancers and out to the communities.
Very cool to think about how that was very important to ancient cultures, and that dance was so much a part of their spirituality. I think it was Max Dashu who was talking about how the bee priestesses who were with the Oracle of Delphi and just in general and historically were really into ecstatic dance, and how ecstatic dance was represented in images. Like she connects lots of winged images and bee images with women in altered states of consciousness, and that they got that way through the drum and through dance.
Absolutely. And that's a really good example, because it recognized that, God isn't this nebulous energy that's outside, far, far away, that God is within nature. It's the very soul of nature through the bees and like the Minoan bee priestesses with the bull. And they recognize that nature is alive with this God essence, and we are a part of nature, and we utilize dance as a way to connect as a connecting language to this energy that may not speak our verbal language, but understands this mutually shared language of movement. And we connect through that and feel a part of nature, and through that synchronicity and through that connection, we then feel elevated and protected as a community, seen as a community, and blessed as a community by these energies. Throughout the world, and I'm speaking in very general terms because we can get very specific, but in general, that is what is happening throughout the world and throughout cultures.
Yes, and we need to utilize all the ways that we can connect different cultures together in a nonverbal way, because once we start talking in ideology, there's so much that's lost in the translation.
Yeah.
Whereas dance and music can convey so much, and, because it comes from the heart, we feel our connectedness. There was a filmmaker who I spoke with who did a film on, I think it's called Dancing in Jaffa. It's about a teacher who brought Palestinian and Israeli kids together to dance. And it was so cool to see how connected they felt at the end,
Yeah, and that will, I think, speaks to later when we talk about why it's important now, why dance is so important now, and not just in the historical context in these ancient, unreachable societies. It's something right now for all of us, and why it's so important. And you just gave a perfect example.
Yes. So what's the philosophy behind Indian dance?
Sure. So Indian dance, so just a little bit of a background. My training right now, and it has been intensively for 10 years, is through Odissi classical Indian dance. It's one of the 8 recognized classical dances of India that originated in the state of Orissa. So Indian dance, through this classical dance, they see and it's recognized that the gods themselves were dancers, and their dance had the very vital role of maintaining the order of the cosmos. So as dancers, we are emulating the gods, which is no small thing, right? And it suggests that art, dance in this case, is a direct path to become like these gods, to maintain the order of the cosmos ourselves. It is a direct path to be self-realized, to be enlightened, to know thyself as divine through the intentional use of the body. And to me, that is completely profound. When we think about spiritual practices, a lot of times it's to remove ourselves from the body or to escape the body. I'm speaking generalizations here, but it's the body themselves is immersed and enmeshed in the world of illusion, and it's filled with ego, and we need to separate ourselves, and that's the truth, right? And so what this suggests is that to know the ultimate truth of who you are, which is eternal, which is God, is through the body. And in classical Indian dance, we follow a text called the Natya Shastra. Natya means dance and drama, and Shastra means sacred text. So the story, I'll say it very quickly, there were the 4 Vedas that were given by Lord Brahma, and it gave all the tools to humanity in order to reach enlightenment, how to conduct oneself in one's life, in one's marriage, to do puja and different rituals. And it just was not accessible. The Vedas were not accessible to most people. And it was not, the story goes, it was not very successful in helping humanity reach enlightenment. So the gods gathered together, Brahma gathered and created a 5th text, which is sacred dance. And it condensed and utilized each of the wisdom and the philosophy of the 4 Vedas into this 5th book that is then expressed through dance. And this dance is given to all of humanity, and it will bypass the conscious mind because it's movement. It gets us into our heart, and it transmits the energy of and the wisdom of the Vedas directly to us through the dancer to the audience. And of course, the dancers receiving these gifts and this wisdom because they're channeling it through their body. And the viewer is receiving wisdom as well. So that is the Nati Shastra. And that is the book that we use that through our hand movements, our eye movements, our foot patterns through Indian dance. So what I feel is really wonderful about sacred dance as a spiritual practice is that its one fundamental requirement is that you use your body, right? So you are in your body consciously because you need your body for every movement. So when you're connecting to God, connecting to these high energies that can kind of, pull us off of our feet, you have to be in your body. So you're constantly grounding into the earth through the vessel that is yourself. And I experienced that in such a potent and powerful way when I was introduced to Odissi dance 10 years ago.
I know each tradition has its own relationship to mudras and some less than others. Mudras are yoga positions for the hands. They really transmit. And for me, they really bring me to a higher minded place, and they take my anxiety away and they clear my head. And it's like, it makes my hands like antennas. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it really is really special. And then also the stomping and the connectedness of my feet to the ground, especially in positions where I have to go low, like the Odissi style, you're squatting, kind of part squatting. It's very empowering and it's very strong. And the whole embodiment thing, it's so important for people to be more and more present. And that really means getting out of our heads and getting into our hearts and then getting into our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we become conditioned. And I guess we're going into the other subject about, the difficulties of being in the modern world and how that's kind of at ends with being a dancer because we're not in our bodies most of the time. And in fact, it's almost encouraged, I feel like, to see it, that to be seen as joy and happiness and our power lay outside of ourselves. So we're always grasping, which means we're not in our own bodies. And then with substances that are socially acceptable, like alcohol and smoking and coffee and antidepressants and all of these things, are the reason why we use them is because we're trying to alter the pain that is in our physical body. The body is not seen as sacred. It's in fact a hellscape. Especially if you've been also working with trauma and anxiety your whole life. It's not a pleasant place to be. And of course you don't want to suffer. We're wired to seek out bliss. And I think that's a good thing. I think that is something that is our God self. That is our God spark that is seeking that bliss. And so we are offered these solutions in our society to say, hey, this is what's going to feel really good. And of course, ultimately we know that's not really the case. So dance in our society is, I think, on a whole seen as an entertainment, something that's fun, something that's amusing either to do or to watch. But it's not elevated in the context that we're speaking, right? It's not seen as a path of self-realization of enlightenment. And I really feel like there is a loss there for that. And this is why this work is just so important to me, that we can have these conversations about dance being that vehicle to get back into our body and to connect to an higher self and to realize that we are a part of it too, right? So whether it's this God outside of us, whether it's nature, that having that vibrant sacred energy that we can flow and connect with is it's so immediate too with dance. So like the Nati Shastra, and Nati Shastra was written, gosh, there's a debate about this, but we're talking anywhere between 3,000 to 8,000 years old. This is very ancient text, we say that, the purpose of the Nati Shastra was to give that immediate understanding that we are God. It's to elevate humanity out of its suffering, even for a small moment. So we understand our natural state is not that suffering. Our natural state is bliss. Our natural state is joy. That is our birthright. And that is in fact the purpose of the dance, and nothing less than that. So it is such an important vehicle too. And it is an immediate way that we can get back into our bodies, because it's fun, because it's people, we enjoy doing it. Babies dance. It's something that's very natural within us to do it. So I believe it's a vital thing to utilize as a tool, even today, even in our modern times.
So what are your visions for this tool being used by Western society, by modern societies? Like, what do you daydream about? Or what is your manifesto?
I love that question. Yeah. If I had like a magic wand and I wove it, and first of all, to acknowledge and to recognize that it's possible. That dance is not just this frivolous pursuit. It's not necessarily just a silly hobby that is disposable, that it's actually a vital part of our survival as a human species. I think any practice that gets us back in our body is something that's immediately important in our world. As I had mentioned, we're not in our bodies and we're hurting really badly. And frankly, this world is dying for a lack of love. And we don't have that love because of our pain we put on others. And dance is an immediate way where we can access the truth of who we are. So first, I would say that we acknowledge that this is possible, and that it can even be practiced and utilized in schools. Just a basic requirement that it's something that could even be prescribed even. There's a story, and I don't know if this is true, but there's the story where if somebody is hurting or sad in certain tribes, they'll say, well, when's the last time you've danced? And whether that's true or not, that's the kind of value system that I would love to see in our society. And to me, it's so vastly different than what I see, but to connect back to the roots of how it was traditionally viewed, at least in the Indian context. We are the house of God. Even in the Bible, it says that, Christ says, do you know that you yourselves are God, that the temple of God is within you? Do you know that the Spirit, God's Spirit is within you? And you know that, and you can access that at any moment. You don't need anybody else. You have that access. And if you forget, you can move in a conscious way to remember that you can access, if you lose access, that light of the divinity, that you can move and reconnect to that, and know that through that connection, you are made whole, and you can move that out, and then also nourish the community around you, nourish your family around you, nourish your friends and your children around you through the embodiment of this light, through your dance. It seems like a very simple thing. And for any of us that have done it, it's simple and it's so profound, and it's more profound than we can even explain. As you were saying with the mudras, I mean, the mudras are powerful. You lock your fingers in a certain pattern, but the result of it in your body is more than you can explain. It's inexplicable. And this is to me, this is what makes it so powerful, that it is a gift from the divine. And that is my belief through this practice, through many years of this practice. I've seen healing, I've seen awakenings, and I've seen it transmit energies, and I've been transcended. When I've watched sacred dancers, I've been transcended. When I have performed sacred dance, and it's beyond explanation. So I would love to even begin that conversation. And I'd love that you're having me on, that we can talk about that, and that society can see that. And that first starts with seeing the body as sacred and worthy of being a temple of God.
And it might take some people longer to get to that place than others. Certainly the dance brings so much joy and ecstasy even, but up until that point, it helps people learn to be present, like even if people aren't quite at joy, it's great for depression, anxiety, like anything that ails you, it really does bring you to the place of self-love and oneness with all, and really helps with trauma, clearing trauma from different parts of our bodies. We all store memories, and when we kind of shake it loose and move it around, things shift in big ways. And then, of course, when we learn something new, we're rewiring our brains, we're building neuroplasticity. And then when we're listening to like a drum beat or percussion, that's clearing, and it also helps the left and right hemispheres of the brain work together, so that brings us to either a beta or theta brainwave state. So then we're immediately out of that like fight, flight, alpha state. And that's necessary for us to feel calm and peaceful. You are a Kabbalistic and initiate in the lineage of King Solomon, and initiate in the Sri Vidya lineage of Asakta Tantra. And you've also studied Shakespeare, you're a priestess, you've done all kinds of theater, and then you lived in Pushkar, India. So you have all of this different access to these different traditions and all this wisdom, and you're a mom and you're raising your kid. He's learning to honor the divine feminine. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, because you had mentioned dance for kids as being important. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is just like, what's it like raising your son with all of these rich traditions behind you?
Kids know what they're exposed to, right? And he doesn't think it's weird. It just is, because he just grew up around it. Last time I was in India, I was pregnant with him the entire time, dancing Odissi.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, he was my little temple dancer. We went to India together, I tell him. And so it's just what is. I have my little sacred temple dance place down there, and he knows that mommy goes and she does her rituals every day through like my lineage of King Solomon, and I do my Odissi practice, and he did study Odissi sometime with my teacher as well, and I'm hoping he'll get back to it. So it's just an inherent part of his life that dance is special in this way, that it can be practiced in this way. And how that will translate immediately for him, it remains to be seen. I know for me as a mother, dance grounds me and brings me joy and brings me back to myself in days where it's very hard, it's very stressful. There are days where I've been scared, days where I've been uncertain. And then when I dance in an intentional way, I am focused, I am centered, I'm back in my body, and then I can be a more present mother, a more loving mother, a more conscious mother. So dance in an immediate way just helps me in that regard. And he sees that, and he can just feel that because they're connected to us. They're a part of us. So when he sees that dance is important to me and how it brings me joy, of course, that will inform him, whether, overtly or subtly. I see it affect him too.
Well, if you want to tell us a little briefly about your guru, because you're part of this amazing lineage of Odissi, mm-hmm. and you're studying with these awesome masters, including Kalina Shakti. Do you have any words on that to share with us before we go? And then if you can tell folks how to contact you, because you offer all sorts of classes, mm-hmm. and mentorship.
Yes. Oh gosh. So I will restrain myself from gushing over my gurus, who I feel like are the embodiment of the philosophy we're talking about, who have just given their entire lives and their entire selves to uplift these art forms. And they just have such a profound philosophy around art and what art is capable of in this modern world. And they're just holding that torch in such an impeccable way. So briefly, I am from my Odissi lineage is the Guru Kilchar Mohapatra lineage. He is the founder of this particular line of Odissi. He is no longer with us. However, he was a genius and a beautiful person. He's from Orissa. He's Oriya. And all the choreographies and the style that I learned are his choreographies that are passed down through his students that have now since become gurus. So Kalina Shakti is one such teacher. She is part of the lineage. Her guru is Sujata Mohapatra, who is his daughter-in-law. And Kalina runs a dance school in Pushkar, the Shakti School of Dance. She also runs a summer dance program in Crete. And she is just an impeccable example of, especially she's a Western woman, and she sold all of her belongings 20 years ago and lived in India and has just devoted her life to holding these teachings and this wisdom and passing it down in a very impeccable way to her students. So she's incredible. And Sudhansu, who is my other teacher in the lineage, does the same thing as well. He is from Orissa and he is part of the same school. And Molly Paul, who is from India, and she's a direct disciple of the late Guru Kilchar Mohapatra. She's my teacher in Boston. She's incredible. And so I just do my best every single day to honor the teachings and the grace of my teachers and what they have given me as this precious, precious gift. And when I teach my students, that I think about them, that they're in the room with me at all times, and that I'm honoring them by conveying this knowledge as clear as possible with the most integrity as possible. That is what I endeavor to do every day. So to get in touch with me, you can reach me. My email is Kalidasi Dance, KALIDASI dance @gmail.com. If you want to join our interactive online Facebook community, it's Kalidasi's global online sacred dance community. There's a lot of free classes on there. I teach couple different things. I teach Indian fusion belly dance. I also teach modern temple dance, which is a practice of how to be a modern sacred dancer and very specific path and tools in order to connect and utilize the sacred energy we're talking about through the body for yourself and for others. I do workshops on that. I'm also offering a 3-month program intensive for those that are really who are really called to this path as sacred dancers. That begins in January. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that, I'm happy to talk to them. Please feel free to reach out to me through email.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kalidasi, for joining us. I love your classes and your teaching style, and your dancing is beautiful. Thank you for being here with us today talking about sacred dance.
My absolute pleasure, Pandora. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Healing Wisdom, a Thursday morning weekly show featuring guests who share their journeys and expertise, providing us with food for thought. I'm your host, Pandora Peoples, Reiki and shamanic practitioner. You can find Healing Wisdom podcasts at WOMR.org or on Facebook and Instagram pages. Behind me is Raven from Michael Whitehorse Aviles, featuring Jennifer R. Youngs and Neil Rosenfeld.